Think we're going live right about now. Hello guys, and welcome to another live stream. I have with me Red Pill's Anteros. I'm just giving him the link right now so that people can follow us. How are you, man?
I'm doing quite all right. How are you?
I'm all right. We said we will start by introducing ourselves first of all. You know me. I mean, the people on the channel should know me. I produced MGTOW content in the past, and now I just make general, I guess, Red Pill content rather than anything else. I've met through Red Pill, really. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I've been a part of the Red Pill community for about 3 years now. I'm a moderator in the IRC channel and an admin on the new site, trp.red. I've seen a lot from the Red Pill community, and I've contributed quite a bit in terms of answering questions, guiding young men towards success in their personal lives and with women, and a lot of in between. So, yeah.
The in between is where all the fun is, isn't it? All right. So, yeah, it is. And how long have you been doing this, if you don't mind me asking?
About 3 years on the Red Pill, right? And there have been other communities I've been a part of before then. I mean, I started off with MRA a long time ago, and I even did some pickup stuff. But my stint in the pickup community was very different because of the way that I grew up. We can get into that later if you wish.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that we're having this chat is because the Red Pill and MGTOW in general, they have issues, let's say, with each other.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I keep seeing kind of like posts on the Red Pill. It's not yourself in specific, it's people in general that seem to have issues with MGTOW. I mean, I was part of the community, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still friends with many of the guys. It's for personal reasons that I really just moved away from all that rather than anything else. So you guys have a definition. We'll start with the definition, and then we will discuss everything that goes from there, and as to the reasons why there are disagreements. Right? I'm going to use the definition that exists on the Red Pill glossary. Yes?
Mm-hmm. So let's start with that. I'm sure that we're going to have some other definitions ourselves.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are thousands. And that's the problem. So the definition on the Red Pill glossary is men going their own way. The growing contingent of the male population who are saying fuck it all to the mating dance. Right? I mean, that doesn't sound too bad to me. All right?
That sounds horrible to me.
It's because of the fuck it all. It depends how you're thinking the fuck it all. I think when it comes to the Red Pill, people are thinking fuck it all means walking away completely, not engaging with women, not talking with women, not having anything to do with women. And my experience is that that's not really the case when it comes to MGTOW. So is that really the disagreement that exists?
I think that is at the core of it, that understanding of MGTOW checking out of the sexual marketplace, and particularly at a young age, that a lot of Red Pill, particularly senior Red Pill actually, that we have a problem with that. The idea of a young man saying, I'm not going to go be a part of this sexual marketplace because it's hard. Yeah, we know it's hard, and that's why you have to go do it. One of the important lessons in life is that the things that are hardest generally turn into the things that are most valuable. Now, it's just a rule of thumb generally. Like, it's hard to lift weights, but you have a great a great outcome from that, of course.
Yeah.
And it's definitely hard to deal with women today. In fact, I would say it's never been harder. I'm pretty sure that the audience here can recite statistics off of the top of their head that describe how horrible gender relations are today.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's no reason to quit, in my view.
So it's no reason to quit. It depends how you think of it. I mean, the Red Pill generally doesn't really advise people to get married. Am I wrong when it comes to that?
Oh, that's correct. We do advise against marriage.
Yeah. And that's because of the difficulties in the sexual marketplace right now. And because of the one of them, yes. And when I say that, what I mean is that there are distinct difficulties, let's say, when it comes to dealing with women long term, because they have the upper hand. So it's laws really and society how it's structured right now rather than anything else.
Right. Let's not lump in long-term relationships, because that's not something that the Red Pill is against.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one is really saying in MGTOW don't have a long-term relationship. Not no one. People are saying it, I'm not gonna lie, but people generally don't have much against long-term relationships. I mean, for example, Barbarossa is in a long-term relationship, or was, I don't know if he still is. So I don't really see what the issue is. So I think what the fuck it all is, I mean, as I understand it, or understood it when I was part of the community, it's to kind of say, I'm not going to tie my value to what women think of me, right? I'm going to think of myself as an individual. I have my hobbies, I have my things that I do well and I want to strive towards, and women are irrelevant. Whether they like me or don't like me and all that is completely irrelevant. It is a fuck you attitude towards them. Which for me, personally, it's work to always push women towards me rather than the other way around.
Yep. And that is a sexual strategy that we definitely cover in the Red Pill. I think that the main issue is the sort of straw man fallacy that women are all hypergamous and out to get you. And you'll hear that a lot in MGTOW. They will say all of these really not great things that are valid, true. That women are hypergamous. They do have an element of hypergamy, and there's ways that you can manage that, but that's not really discussed. That's discussed on the Red Pill, where we say, yeah, your woman is hypergamous. Here's what you have to do to manage it. Here's what you have to do to get a woman, because you're using hypergamy to get her. You can take my girlfriend, for example. There was a point at the very beginning where she went back with her ex-boyfriend, and I took her from him at the end.
Yeah.
That, hey, that's hypergamy in action, and it worked towards my benefit. One of the things that's a little different about the Red Pill is that we exploit the sexual strategies to great effect, and without any sort of morality involved. We don't believe in, quitting the game because the cards are against you.
No, I understand. I understand absolutely what you're saying. So the difference is, I guess, when it comes to MGTOW type of thinking, is if the investment doesn't justify the return.
Oh yeah, the juice is not worth the squeeze.
The juice is not worth the squeeze. Yes, absolutely. It's what it comes down to. I mean, I don't keep it a secret. Personally, I'm in a long-term relationship. For me, that long-term relationship, the juice is worth the squeeze. Most of the times, all right? Because the woman is sitting behind me right now. Most of the times, right?
So am I.
Yeah.
I've been in a long-term relationship. It's 8 years now, and my girl should be coming home soon.
So what I'm saying is, when it does come down to how much effort you're willing to put in, and I guess that varies from individual to individual. Personally, as you can tell, like, I have I have some minor disagreements with Red Pill type of thinking, and we'll cover them in a bit. But mostly I agree when it comes to the theory about women, for example, how to deal with women, hypergamy and all that stuff, that things are always happening all the time, that, women are always on the lookout for someone better, if someone better is to be in the picture. And if you are to keep a woman long term, you always have to be, at the top of your game, if that makes sense.
So there are different views on this. I mean, I think that in spirit, we agree. But in practice, it's a little bit different for me. So I mentioned earlier I have a 8-year relationship now. My girlfriend works with the New York Yankees. She works in an area where people have exponentially more money than me. They are much better looking. I'm not like super duper alpha guy.
Mm-hmm.
But she's still happy to come home and make my bed and wash my dishes and do all the things that are a part of our relationship. Objectively, she could probably get one of these guys. She's not bad looking. They hit on her every now and then, and she, comes home and tells me, hey, some guy came up to me and said, do you know who I am? I'm interested.
Yeah.
Like, really, that's their game, because they're so rich that, like, you see them on the paper and it's like, oh, you do know who he is.
Yeah, and I understand that there are elements to, let's say, game, for example, that are on the red pill that cover attitude mostly. So, for example, when I say attitude, I'm talking about alpha attitude, for example, that is advertised all the time on red pill. I'm not, by any extent of the imagination, I don't believe that all it comes down to is money. And I do think, that is a problem with MGTOW, that they do think it's mostly money, resources, that's all that counts. Yes. That's why I have that series that I post all the time on the red pill as well, the Understanding Woman series, because I do think there is incomplete understanding of, let's say, women in general. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't just come down to how much money you have in the bank. It comes down to your attitude, in a way.
Well, that's also, a part of that puzzle. Yeah. I think that perception is a huge deal. And part of being in a relationship, from my perspective, is that the man has to create the perception. It's a very popular analogy to say the captain and first mate. In this case, I think that the captain made the ship, continues making the ship. Her understanding of our relationship, that's made by me. The fact that this relationship even exists, that's made by me. That's something that I did. No one's looking for girls' commitment. They're looking for sex from girls, of course. But guys that are going around saying, oh, I want to have a girlfriend. Will you be my girlfriend? Those guys get shot down really quick. Yeah. You know why? Because that's him being untrue to himself. And she can see that very easily. Any woman can see that very easily. They're not dimwits. And that's why looking at the relationship, or any relationship, as a transaction of, I'm going to give you resources and you're going to give me sex, that's naive. And that's one of the issues that I have with MGTOW, that they pretty much make the mistake, and in my view it's a mistake. It's going to be a sort of feministy thing to say, but it's true. If you think that, like, all women bring to a relationship is sex, you're missing out on a lot. They bring color to life that men don't have the capability of doing. If you left running the world up to men, we would write numbers on people's forehead that outlined who can mate with who can love who. Since we have women, and they inspire us to excel, to climb hierarchies, to do these great things, and they give us something else, well, not give, but we work with them to create something that's more important than everything else. Yeah. Family and family relationships are way more important than your hobbies. Not you, the general MGTOW, but they're way more important than any hobby I can have, any accomplishment I make in my career, anything that I own. If you took away all of these things and left just family and relationships and like the people that I love, I can build back the rest. Every man can. You can't do the same thing with women, of course, but for men, if you take away all of his money, he could say, you know what? I still have my son, and that means I still have a reason to excel at work. I still have a reason to build back up what was taken away.
I mean, I guess what the difference is when it comes to that, and it's not that, for example, I personally believe relationships should have some form of emotional investment for any man. Otherwise, what's the point on being with someone other than just like, if all you're looking for is sex, well, then just find different sexual partners. I mean, don't just stay with just the one. And people, I've gone through that in my life in the past. That's not what I'm doing currently. But there are other things that are important. Family, like you said, relationships, friendships, all of that stuff. They do give magic, let's say, the magical element to life, right? I guess what MGTOW advertises in a way is that you can be self-sufficient in a way. Not self-sufficient, you can be all right with yourself. You can be content with your life as it is without women in a way, without a particular woman in your life, especially if that woman is causing you trouble, and women can cause you trouble, right? Which is, I guess, another aspect that we will discuss later. And I don't have a problem with that mindset, because I do think that many guys, and I'm going to talk specifically about guys that come into the MGTOW sphere, let's say initially, they come in from broken homes, they might have been divorced, they might have had difficult relationships, for example, and they're finding it very difficult to find themselves or see themselves as worthy of, let's say, something better, because someone else has rejected them and they have tied their internal worth with that person, right? And once that person left them, now all they're thinking is that they're not worthy. They feel broken. Some of them could have been vindicated or attacked by their women or their spouse from before, and now they have nothing, and they take all that shit personally, as men do, because we mentioned before privately that you like Spetsnaz, for example, right?
Well, I like the depth at which he goes into the understanding of male pain.
Yes, and that is one of the issues, that men do not explore their pain. It's kind of like frowned upon for a man to have difficulties in his life, or to be finding it hard, let's say, to move on. And there's not much help out there in society either, right? So when that is happening, you need something that will, build you from the bottom up. And I guess that, for me, that's what MGTOW does best, better than anything else. I haven't seen anything do it better than MGTOW. And sometimes it does go to extreme, kind of like stay completely away, go completely monk mode, and people do advertise that. And I have issues with that, because I think that's quite naive. Maybe for a short period of time it will be useful, but I do think it can help build a man to, from the bottom up.
Right. I think that building any sort of knowledge base in regards to women and a man's self-understanding, and then giving him tools to better understand himself, I think that is really helpful across the board. This is one of the reasons we tell everyone to start lifting weights. It's not to get girls. It's so that you start doing something that progresses over time. You could look back at, 2 months ago and say, I couldn't lift this amount of weight before, but now I can. I'm building myself up. Today, it's so easy for a young man to check out and just sit at home with porn and video games. These things that are made to capture his attention and his money, and to capture the things that he holds dear. That progression that I mentioned earlier, that's why video games have levels in them. So that the young man can sit there, progress, and feel, some part of him feels like he's accomplished something. He has a little achievement flashing up on the screen in his little Skinner box of a video game. That stuff is overrepresented, it's overabundant, and now we have pickup artistry, which, as I mentioned before the call, I think it's a form of codependency. Yeah. If you tell these young men, hey, if you cut off your left pinky, you will get a model as a girlfriend. And if they believe it and they get the model, they're gonna cut off their left pinky. They're gonna be walking around with 9 fingers, telling other guys who are like single, like, hey dude, listen, you just cut off your pinky. That's it. You don't really need it. It's come on, just a finger. You got more. And really, to them, that's what the world is. Like, that's the importance that they've put on sex. That's the importance that they've put on women. Now, there's a delineation point, though, between, LTRs and just sleeping around. And I don't want to say that, the red pill is just for sleeping around. It's absolutely not. It has a lot to do with LTRs and a lot to do with your mindset. One of the things that I'm, relatively known for is in our channel, I would say, if you are even considering a long-term relationship, you should have slept with at least 25 women, and you should be at least 25 years old. These are bare minimums. Everyone hates it. Everyone thinks like, oh, that's an arbitrary value. No. Because in doing that, you will come to gain experience that you would have not gained otherwise. If you've only slept with 4 women in your life, and you only have exposure on that level to 4 women in your life, do you not you, Nico, but does one think that he will have the capability of like having a multi-decades long LTR? Is he going to be able to handle it when his girlfriend tries some jealousy ploy?
Well, no. I know the answer to that. Yeah.
In long-term relationships, that's what happens when pickup artists get into long-term relationships, and it's one of the reasons that philosophy is it's kind of a mess. But it's a start for a lot of young men because of how they were raised and the things that they were told when they were children and the things that they weren't told when they were children. Which is a topic.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, both the Red Pill and MGTOW hate PUAs. I mean, I have nothing.
I wouldn't say that like Red Pill hates PUAs, but I would say that it's different. Yeah. Like our tactics, our philosophy, and our strategy, while we don't generally, nail down, here's the 10 things that you have to do to get laid, we do outline sexual strategy. We do, say, hey, here's how you can use this to your advantage. Here's what she cares about you. Here's, how to blossom in this, in this sexual marketplace where the cards are stacked against you.
Yeah, I personally have nothing against that part of Red Pill, and you know that for a fact. I mean, I've come from reading Rollo Tomassi into MGTOW, so I have a background. I participate on Reddit. I don't even call myself MGTOW, but as someone is stating I am identifying with MGTOW or representing MGTOW, I'm not. I'm discussing it because I've been in it. I have friends who are still creating content, and I'm even helping people come together under MGTOW umbrellas on websites. If you want access, email me, by the way. My email is in the description, or I'll put it there later. That's all I do. I think men can heal under MGTOW, and that's one of the reasons that I'm talking to MGTOW, or I have good relationships with MGTOW, let's say, and I have friends who are MGTOW. I do think MGTOW can help and has many valid points, but so does Red Pill. I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I don't think there is one thing or the other that is best.
Well, I have input on that.
Go for it.
Sorry for interrupting, but this is an important stop to make. So I believe that out of all of the manosphere, the MGTOW are the intelligentsia. Judging from writing and just the impression that I get from a lot of them, they are very, very smart individuals.
Yeah.
And one of the issues with very, very smart individuals is intellectualizing instead of experiencing. In particular, the experience of making mistakes, having your ego attacked, jumping back up when you're knocked down, socially, publicly. These are not fun things. This hurts. This sucks. And it hurts and sucks even more if you have a background where you were like hurt as a child and you're still looking for love, so to speak. You're still looking for someone out there who is going to be your mom, to put it plainly.
Well,
because that happens very often with these guys who have such pain growing up.
I agree that some of the people in the sphere are, let's say, intelligentsia like you described them, or maybe socially awkward or whatever, right? Well, and I completely agree with that. But okay, like my personal experience, because I've met with some of them, I talked to some of them, I know some of them actually personally. The majority of the content producers that I do talk to, they're the complete opposite. They are completely socially adept. They're completely like, some of them look like models, and they do aspire and follow many of the Red Pill kind of thinking. They work out, they look after themselves, they look good, they have lots of money at their disposal, and they're chased by women. It's just that they think, and that is the key thing, that they think the juice is not worth the squeeze, and they're not willing to settle down with anyone, right? So
now why is that? Because the problem with very intelligent people is that they're so smart and they're so familiar with facts and theorems and such that they can experience something without experiencing it. They could look at a situation and say, okay, I'm going to use my power of intellect to identify what this is going to be like. One of the issues with getting young men to talk to women is they prejudge and say, you know what, I'm going to go up to her and it's not going to go well. And if you go up to any other human being with that sort of perspective on the interaction and yourself, it's not going to go well. And stopping there is the problem. I think that the key is making these mistakes and not mistaking the unintelligible for the unintelligent. There's a lot that happens during this process where a young man gets to sort of re-socialize himself from a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, now things are different. Now the world is open to me in a way that it was closed off before. That's a hard thing to do, and it teaches very important lessons. It teaches you that girls are not the be-all and end-all. They're not that important as you were making them before, because as a teenager, your hormones are going crazy, and you're experiencing a lot of these intense feelings for the first time. Yeah. As you get older, you get more familiar with dealing with this hormone response and your adrenaline response. That's why it's 25 years old.
Well, one of the things that I do agree with, I don't agree with anyone that says like, and we'll move on to another aspect of MGTOW that I'm sure Red Pill disagrees. For example, going full monk, completely moving away from women, having nothing to do with women at all. And when people do that at a very young age, which is something we discussed privately before, it's something that, it's not something that you want to advertise, for example, if that makes sense.
It is particularly distasteful.
Yes.
Because everyone does go MGTOW when you get old. You check out at the sexual marketplace.
That's one way to look at it.
Then you are MGTOW when you're 60, and that's it.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I think, and that is just me, I think that young guys can be MGTOW if they prioritize themselves, and I think one of the things that they do advertise on Red Pill as well is to improve yourself, work out, look after yourself, work on your education, whatever the hell you're doing, improve yourself in that way. And I do think if you want to grow yourself, or if you want to reject women altogether, you need to be able to have some experience under your belt in order to say that. Like, I have nothing against guys that tell me, I've been in relationship 150 times. I'm done with women. My ex-wife took my kids. The second ex-wife took my house. The third ex-wife took my car. Now I'm living in a camper van in the middle of nowhere. Right? When people tell me that, I'm like, okay, all right, fuck it. If you don't want to anymore, you're 60 years old or 50 years old, and you really don't want to deal with women anymore, don't do it. As long as you're happy. And the key is happiness. What many people have a problem with that come and talk to me personally, and they feel almost ashamed, I guess, when they are exposed to some of the MGTOW type of thinking, is when they say that they want a partner in their lives or they want to be with a woman, and then they feel like they're committing an ideological fallacy, for example, if they want that because they want to call themselves MGTOW, which to me is completely idiotic. And it's one of the reasons that I walked out from the community, let's say, from that part of it, because no one is going to tell me or anyone else on my channel what to do with their fucking genitals, right? I don't care what orifice they put them in. I don't care what gets them off or whatever. As long as children and animals are not hurt, I'm happy, right? And it's up to the individual to make that choice. But in order to make let's say a rational choice, you need to have some experience. That I do agree with.
Well, yeah, you need a particular amount of experience. That, and the thing you mentioned earlier, in old age, that like if a guy is, he's reached 60, he's divorced, he's having a bad time, and he wants to check out, that's understandable, because at 60, your sex drive is lower than it is when you're in your 20s. When you're in your 20s, you want to fuck all the time. And you can say the same thing for 30s, and for some guys, the 40s too.
Or 15s.
Now, oh yeah. It's different for guys, depending on how they maintain their bodies and what culture they have and what's allowable in their culture. There is no monolithic sexual strategy. You can't necessarily use what we do in New York City in Beijing. Yeah. Maybe that's not the best example, but in rural China, you can't do it.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. There are cultural differences.
Yeah, and also the ability to be alone, that is something that you learn by getting rejected and making mistakes. And the loneliness threat, of which happens in relationships sometimes, where a girl's like, he's not going to get anybody else. If I threaten to leave him, I'll get what I want. That's a sexual strategy that that she might use against you, and you need to be able to say, hey, hit the road. I'm fine. I'll be alone, and if I want to get another girlfriend, I will. That confidence, it doesn't come from the internet. It doesn't come from reading books, and it doesn't come from going monk mode. It absolutely doesn't come from going monk mode, because more isolation doesn't fix problems born by isolation.
Well, I mean, let's just God, someone saying that I'm a pussy addict. I don't care what you guys think. I mean, that is the whole point of having this.
Troll us this whole time, you pussy addict.
Yeah. And the pussy is sitting behind me as well. I mean, there is no value in stating that fact. What we're trying to discuss right now is differences between MGTOW and the red pill in general. So let's just focus on the red pill kind of like tactic, or not tactic, the red pill philosophy, right? And let's focus on the MGTOW philosophy, for example, because I do think, for example, not giving a shit about women, not having not caring what a woman might think of you, and all that are fundamentals in being confident in yourself and only caring about your own accomplishments and not linking or entering a state of codependence with a woman. Once that happens, that definitely favors a sexual, in terms of sexual strategy, and women do come to you, right? So I don't see why there is an issue when it comes to that, from the MGTOW side of things, towards red pill.
So that is at the crux of the issue. How much, where do you draw the line on female influence in your life? Right? Are you going to start doing bodybuilding workouts so that you can get big muscles, and hopefully some girl will be more open to talking to you because you have big muscles? You'll do very well on Tinder. I disagree. I mean, but you will do very well on Tinder. Hold on, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's not going to help you in the long run.
Yeah.
That's how guys get addicted to, going on steroids and staring at themselves in the mirror. That's bullshit. That's external stuff. And even if you have a six-pack and, big muscles, that's not enough. That's not the all-encompassing thing. That's a magic silver bullet that a lot of guys are looking for, that they've bought into, that they're going to say, hey, how can she reject me? I have big muscles. I have a six-pack. I'm smart. All of that stuff that you expect is going to work, sometimes it doesn't. There is no one true sexual strategy. Like I said earlier, there's no monolithic sexual strategy, and it changes with the expectations of women, really. Think back to, I don't know if you were alive back then, probably not, but 1960s and such. And what did a strong man look like in 1960s? Not like what they look like now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now they're giant hulking beasts with 0% body fat or something like that. In the 80s, you were probably alive back then, I was, it was weird to have a six-pack.
Mm-hmm.
The sexual marketplace was different in the 80s. We used to go on dates and like it. Now it's, you meet up at a bar, you bring a girl back to your place, you Netflix and chill.
Yeah, exactly. Which things
the different relationship.
Yeah.
You learn very different things at a different pace. That's why it's 25 women. It might be higher depending on where you are, but yeah, at a bare minimum 25, so that you can get exposure to girls who have healthy backgrounds, have unhealthy backgrounds, have been with guys who are objectively cooler, more alpha than you. You can deal with girls who have these expectations of relationships where everything's 50-50, and you have to sort of guide her out of that. A lot of guys, when I talk to them about my girlfriend, they're like, wow, you found a good one. No, I didn't. She has good things, but she is the way she is because I've reinforced the good things that I like in the relationship, because I've taken control of the relationship and guided it properly.
Yeah.
You don't find unicorns, you make them.
Well, I mean, no woman is a unicorn at the end of the day, but you can certainly improve behavior, let's say, when it comes to being with her, if you are in charge of it. And I think I've listed that in the She will submit. Understanding. I don't even know which part of the series it is in the Understanding Woman series, where I talked about how you can actually be in charge of a woman when it comes to it, if you want to. Of course, hypergamy never switches off. In a way, it's one of the truths that you can never fucking chill, right? Completely as a man. You can never think that, you know, my job is now done. She will stay with me forever. There's nothing I can fucking do, and she will leave me. And I guess that's one of the problems that MGTOW has, that the commitment part from women is dependent on how you're going to behave as a man, and dependent on, you know, one part, what kind of men she comes across and what kind of men want to bang her, right? So I guess it's one of the issues that people have, and it's one of the issues that MGTOW men, for example, don't want to commit to a relationship. Personally, I mean, when it comes to me, I'm not one of the guys that cares. I mean, if she finds someone better, I mean, good on her, right? I don't want her to, but I can't stop, you know, the whole universe from working out in the way that it is, and I cannot change the sexual strategies, and I cannot change hypergamy. All I can do is be myself, be confident, which is what I naturally am anyway, live my life in the way that I want, and if she doesn't want to be part of my life at some point, for example, I'm talking specifically about the woman who's sitting behind me now, then I guess if she wants to have something better, or thinks there is something better out there, you know, I don't feel like I should stop her. And that's incredibly egoistic of me in terms of like discussing that. But I do think people should be happy in the relationships that they're at. I don't like when I discuss with people and they're unhappy, completely unhappy at the state of their relationships, at what they're doing in their lives. I think there is a nice balance in a way that can work. I think, who was it? It was Rollo that I was talking to, and he said that the relationship with a woman should not be parasitic in a way. And they can help in certain ways. They can make your life slightly better if things are working out. And anyone who's been in a relationship through the honeymoon stage, they can say that their life was much better. I mean, even if we are to exclude oxytocin completely out of the equation, their life was better. It was easier in a way. Well,
like I said, women bring a color to life that we just can't do on our own. But they also have their own strategies. And you mentioned earlier, like that concept of, you know, you own the woman. That's nonsense. That's a strategy to get you to reveal something about yourself. Like, to make an analogy, let's say I have a limo driver, right? Drives my limo, and I know in the back of my head, or I suspect in the back of my head, just this limo ride is going to turn into a Jason Statham movie. So I tell him, hey, how much do you like driving limos, particularly my limo? He says, I love it. It's great. It's wonderful. Driving your limo is the best thing ever. It's like, okay, here's $1 billion or £1 billion. You never have to work a day in your life ever again. You and your family are taken care of from here on out. You don't have to. Are you still a limo driver?
No.
No. Well, maybe.
Well,
if he says yes, he really loves it. And if you say yes after, like, a woman says, don't worry, you own me. You get all the sex you'll ever want for the rest of your life. It's so great. That tells her something. That's a part of a sexual strategy. That's figuring out what you're made of. And that's something that you learn with experience. Mm-hmm. And also, you mentioned earlier that, like, you know, you don't want your girl to find another guy. Some fellas would look at that and say, oh, he slipped up. She's on Tinder now. But really, it doesn't work that way, because you've built up her perspective and the relationship to a point where you feel confident saying that in front of her, right? A lot of guys would never dare say that. They would never dare show any crack in their armor. They would never say, maybe I don't feel so great today. Maybe I'm feeling weak today. Maybe I'm unsure or unconfident. And that happens in relationships. It's happened to me over the past 8 years, as you might imagine. I've been sick. I've failed to lift a certain amount of weight in front of her. Like, it I didn't like it. Yeah. It wasn't great. But she didn't dump me the next day either. Maybe she's plotting. Anyway, with all the MGTOW stuff that I've seen, it seems that that idea that you're made of stone and that you're always on your game, and that like a relationship is you can never ease up. It's game on hard mode. It's no, that's taking a grain of sand and telling me things about the beach. It's an over extrapolation. It sounds good, just like always putting yourself sounds good and communism sounds good. It's all on paper. When it comes to a real relationship, you know, there are self-sacrifices involved, and you're happy to make them, especially if there's a family.
I mean, it depends what you guarantee as what you consider to be a sacrifice. I mean, yeah. The way that I see things and the way that I've always seen relationships, and I guess that was partly because of the influence of my family and my mother. She was always like explaining to me that you're supposed to have a relationship that makes you happy. If lines are crossed, if certain things happen, then you're supposed to walk away, and you should set your lines.
Boundaries,
yeah, your boundaries, exactly, when it comes to whoever you're with. Obviously, if you're in a long-term relationship, you don't want her to be sucking someone else's cock in your spare mind, and that's part of kind of like being a man in a way. You don't want to share your woman. If you wanted to share your woman, what's the point?
Maybe a relationship is not for you.
Yeah. I think it's a lot easier to just, you know, live the life of a bachelor, and you can still share your woman with as many guys as possible. Which is exactly what's happening with if you're just looking for sex, I guess.
She's not yours though. Like in that situation, you get her for like an hour. Yeah. And I recommend getting them early in the day so you won't get sloppy seconds.
Oh, yeah. And hope she showers in between. Exactly. Yeah. But that is something that I consider normal in a way, and I'm not sure if MGTOW understand these kind of concepts. I'm sure the majority of them do. It's just that some of them take things to the extreme, like you said. If you're in a relationship with someone, cracks in your armor will show, right? Sometimes you won't be as strong. Sometimes you won't be at your best. Things like that will happen. And the thing is, your mindset is that you're still the shit. Kind of, it's how I see it. That never changes for me. That's always been the case when it came to me. It's kind of annoying because it causes issues, you know, with the women that I was involved with. But that is the situation as it is. There's a lot of people talking about sucking cocks in the comment section. I don't know what's happening, but if you guys do want to do that, I mean,
that's the YouTube audience. They love doing that.
So other than the disagreement that you have about people going full monk on, you know, with MGTOW, is it mainly that some people are advising, let's say, young people to check out completely out of the sexual marketplace? Is that the gist, let's say, of the disagreement?
The gist of the disagreement is encouraging young people to go, not to directly telling them, but giving them half of the information. That half is, women are terrible. They'll divorce rape you. They'll do all these horrible things. If any like MGTOW that I've listened to, besides Spetsnaz and Aaron Clary, they have a healthy amount of, hey, women, they might be evil, like they're bad, stay away. And nobody's gonna read that and go out and then have a great social life with women involved, as they should be in a social life. Nobody's gonna do that. There isn't a lot of hey, go out and make mistakes in MGTOW, from my perspective. Now, I know you may know, like, one or two other content providers or producers who do that sort of thing where they say, hey, you should get out of your basement and make a bunch of mistakes. You should go out and get your heart broken. You should go out and break some hearts. You should sleep with at least 25. I get that. But it's not what I see from the MGTOW community.
Well, the way that I see it is that when I was part of the community, even now, I mean, none of the information that I provide is prescriptive. And if you see my content, and I'm sure you've read some of my content as well, I just offer information. I explain things, and from that point on is do whatever the fuck you want, right? I think the way that I see it, and the way that many of the content providers or content producers, I think you gave me a bug or something. Anyway, many of the content producers think of it is offer the information so that people can make an informed decision, right? Men or women are completely different, and that's one of the ideas that MGTOW does, like expose, and they go in depth sometimes into, you know, the very depths of female nature. And I guess it's seen from a negative point of view. Yet again, they're not painting it as all being absolutely great, which is what the PUAs do. In a way, they're saying that a woman will be the best thing that will ever happen to you. Have you had a girlfriend? If you haven't had a girlfriend, this will be the best thing ever. Which is,
it's the cutting that pinky off.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not true. I guess MGTOW does focus a little bit too much on the negatives, and I do too when it comes to my content. But I want people to know, you know, if you're with a woman, it's not going to be great all the time. Bitches be crazy, right? They're going to act out, they're going to cause problems, they're going to shit test you all the time, which is kind of what I want people to know. But yet I'm not telling them do that or don't do that. The only thing I'm telling everyone not to do is don't fucking get married. I mean, you must be an idiot if you go and get married, in a way, as the climate is right now.
Well, I can agree that you know, marriage right now is fraught with terror. It's still a half-sided, it's a lopsided story that we're introducing into these young men's minds. We're telling them, hey, here's all the negative. Now you can make an informed decision with all this negative. I don't see too much of, hey, you know, here's my great LTR life. I mean, if you look in the TRP IRC channel, I mean, we have a couple of moderators that have that sort of thing. They're having great long-term relationships. I like to consider myself amongst them. Mm-hmm. And they're doing things that other guys look at and they're like, wow, you're on a different level. I could never do that. I'm not cut from that cloth. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are. You just need to build yourself up. You need to get to that point. And yeah, things are worse now than they've ever been. The gender relations, horrible. You might get falsely accused of rape.
Yeah.
Does that mean you stay home? You might get hit by a car. Does that mean you stay home? Lightning might strike you. You're going to stay home? No. By staying home, those young men who I believe follow MGTOW, because of all of the negative things that they say, they are harming themselves. They are not building themselves up properly. And we've had generations of that already. That's one of the reasons that things are so screwed up now, is that both young men and young women have grown up now who never saw their fathers be assertive. They didn't have any positive male role models besides the ones on TV, and even that's kind of sanitized. I mean, they like try to protect their ego too much, and that's what forces them into the basement.
Well, in order to bring some kind of like MGTOW thinking into this, it's not that I'm disagreeing in terms of like the psychological aspect of things. If you're not experiencing things, if you're completely isolating yourself from society, which is not what MGTOW do at all, not the ones that I talk to at least, right, then you will have some problems. Social isolation does lead to many psychological issues. But what they never will have a problem with is, for example, a false rape accusation. It's they're never going to be involved with a woman in court. They're never going to have divorce proceedings happen, and all that is fact, because they never got exposed to a source that could like cause them that. Yet, I guess if you're not working at home without anyone else around you, or in an all-male profession, you're going to come across women, right? And unfortunately, if you are not socially adept, let's say if you're not able to talk to women, if you're not able to behave in a certain way, then they might cause you problems. Because it's not the first time or the second time or the last time that I will hear, let's say, the woman that I'm with come home and tell me that there was this creepy guy at work who was talking to her and she felt uncomfortable. And by creepy guy, what I always think she means is a guy, for example, who is on the spectrum, for example, or you know, is getting overexcited by talking to a woman. And I think women sense that in a way, and it causes problems.
Oh yeah, and they're not always forgiving of those problems.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where a lot of this comes from. But to put a finer point on what you mentioned earlier, avoidance of the sexual marketplace is hardly a guarantee. You can still run into trouble with women, and particularly if you are one of these guys with all these horrible negative thoughts in his mind about women that you got maybe from some videos or some content that you read, it's not going to go well for you. Sure, you should know the nature of the creature that you're dealing with. Of course. How long does that take? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? If you read an article that says, oh, well, this guy got divorce raped, well, maybe I should be a little bit wary of getting married or whatever. Yeah, that doesn't take long. All that young men need now is the fundamentals and a pair of balls. They need to be able to go out, get knocked down, and get back up, make mistakes. That's how you get rid of the ego. That's how you get rid of all of this worry and a lot of the problems that will create that Asperger's sort of presentation when you're talking to someone. Because managing your hormone response is a big part of that. You get a lot of adrenaline when you're talking to a girl because it's like the first time, and oh, I hope she doesn't falsely accuse me of rape for talking to her. That's not going to be a great interaction.
Exactly, and there needs to be a fine balance. There needs to be a fine line. It's not one or the other. I do think that the majority of people fall in the middle, which is where I'm at, right? I'm thinking, you know, I need to be careful at work. If a certain person or someone I'm working with starts asking for my number or anything like that, or starts wanting more from me or anything like that, then I'm careful. I don't shit where I eat. That's a rule in my life that will never change, right? Because of the potential, let's say, of having harm come at me. And then, you know, I'll be running around, even if nothing gets proven, then I'll still have that name forever, right? And that is one of the problems. You need to be wary, you need to be understanding, but you need to be able to still live a happy life. I do think complete isolation is not the solution, but that's personally my thing. I don't think I am everyone. I don't think my version or your version will fit everyone. But I think, honestly, you will never find out what works best for you if you're not willing to try it, if you're not willing to go out and have some fun. And I'm not talking go out on dates or anything like that. I'm talking go out, enjoy yourself, hang out with your mates, talk to girls and engage with them if you want to. But don't be completely like, women are absolute scum, I will never talk to them, because that's not true. If you should never be absolute about anything. There's nothing that's absolutely one thing in life.
Well, you mentioned happiness earlier, and that's a bit of an amorphous concept. Like, what is happiness for a man, and what is it for a woman? For a man, I think it's closely associated with work and with family. For a woman, it's more like a chocolate chip cookie, but we can get into that later. The sacrifices that you make to create your happiness, be it, making a lot of money, doing a lot in terms of fitness, etc., they all have payoffs. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the most important things in life, it's not those. It's not money, and it's not things, and it's not a hobby. If you sacrifice and you put your all into a long-term relationship, a good woman, you built it up, you know what you get? You get a family. You get the most important thing in life. If you die afterward, you will go to sleep with a clear conscience. If you avoid all of those things because of divorce rape, because of false rape allegations, or the possibility of false rape allegations, you're really harming yourself. And that's my huge problem with MGTOW. I don't want these young men harming themselves anymore in the name of, you know, I'm in the name of happiness. They're saying to themselves, I'm going to make myself happy because, you know, I really love my motorcycle and I really love being a motorcycle rider and I'm going to be the best motorcycle rider. And it turns into a Pyrrhic victory.
Well, I mean,
the best motorcycle rider.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I should have had a family instead. Good.
When I'm talking about happiness, I'm not talking specifically about the happy state that one has when he, I don't know, wins the lottery. I'm talking specifically about contentment in your life, and that is a fine balance of always feeling happy at the state that you're at, and that will vary between man and man, because men are lone wolves in a way when it comes to their internal world, right? Only they know what's happening inside of them. Only they know what will make them happy. And I do think for the majority of men around, you know, having a partner in their lives or whatever might be one of those aspects, right? But I do think it's not the only aspect. And I do think that if a man is to engage with someone or put himself in a long-term relationship or even date or whatever, a certain level of emotional, not intelligence, emotional maturity needs to be in place. Understanding oneself is one very important aspect, and I don't think there is a right or a wrong answer here. Like I said, I know people within the MGTOW community who are happy being on their own, and by happy I mean they're feeling content being on their own. They have lived their lives, they have had experiences in their lives. Right now they just don't want to, and they're not even looking because they simply don't care. And that is a valid answer. It's not something they should be advertising to anyone, because like I said, I don't think anything is prescriptive. I do think that you can be happy though away from women. I do think that is a possible answer.
This is true. You can definitely achieve some level of happiness. But I think that we're heading down that same road that we did earlier with mistaking the unintelligible for the unintelligent. Mm-hmm. People don't know what makes them happy. If they did, they would just do it all the time. That's giving people way too much credit. If you ask a young man, hey, what makes you happy? He's going to say, catching Pokemon.
I like Pokemon too, unfortunately.
It's really popular right now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really make him happy. As he grows up, it's going to change. The things that, you know, make us happy are things that have an effect on us, and many of them come from places that we don't know. And in my view, at this point in my life, as a 35-year-old guy, I think family makes people happy. Mm-hmm. Because, again, like the third time I'm mentioning it, it's the most important thing. Your loved ones are the most important thing. And that can be a source of happiness across the ages. If you're a little boy and you have a brother, the fact that you have a brother brings you some level of happiness that that person is alive and that you know them and that you are on the same team. Now, your brother may be an asshole, sure. But you still love him, though. And that's pretty enduring. That lasts a long time. That lasts a lot longer than any hobby. Yeah. And it has a much larger impact on the overall man's life.
Well,
that moment was his eyes for the last time.
I'm not disagreeing with you when you're saying, for example, family is a very important thing. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Even when I talk to people that have been divorced, for example, they still love their children. Their children give them happiness and a reason almost to live, right? That is not something that I have anything against, right? That's, again, one of the things that add magic, let's say, in your life. And you want and you need to care for your family. And if we are to go down the intelligentsia, you called it, route, I mean, that is a genetic response, right? It's inbuilt. We care about our family. We have to look after them and all that. It's part of being a man in a way, mm-hmm. right? And I'm saying if you do have a family, if you want them to be well, right? There is nothing that I have against that. What I'm saying is when you are in a long-term relationship with someone and it's not working for you, and that someone is part of your family, or your wife has cheated on you, or your, let's say, partner has cheated on you, or anything like that, then maybe all that drama, all that shit is no longer worth the squeeze, right?
In retrospect, and But what did you learn about yourself during the time before that, before they cheated on you? Hey, maybe I shouldn't be this way in a relationship. Maybe I shouldn't set up my life in such a way. Maybe I shouldn't put her at the level that she was, where she felt that she should cheat on me. You know, there's this big complaint that, like, if a man cheats, it's his fault. If a woman cheats, it's his fault. It's true. Because relationships, commitment, is managed by men. That's something that we create. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, that whole relationship, all of the sacrifices involved, all of the boundaries, all of that, it's mostly made by a man. A lot of guys don't know how to do that today. I would say that 90%, and that's just an arbitrary number, I'd say 90% of guys, they don't want to do that because it involves some level of bigotry. It involves, I told you so. Why should I do that? Because I told you so. And if you want to fight about it, we can, but you will surely lose. I'll go my own way. Watch. And things don't generally come to that. Like, in terms of, arguments, that's like, just a microcosm of a conflict. But managing conflict in a relationship is not something that young men are brought up learning how to handle.
Well, I guess what I'm going to say is that I do not think that, for example, if a woman cheats on me, not that it's happened, but if it does happen, if she cheats on me, I do not think that's personally my fault. I do think women are their own masters. They will make decisions. Of course, if she's not having fun in a relationship, or if she finds someone better, or if you're no longer the man you thought you were, and that means, in red pill terms, you're become a beta in her mind, then she is likely to cheat on you, right? And that's, I guess, one of the aspects where you always have to have your game on, that kind of like idea. But if she does cheat on me, then it is an action that she has taken on her own. Yes, I may have not been on my best game. Yes, I may not have been a burst, lifting the weights that I was lifting before. I may have been kind of like cutting my meat rather than just grabbing it and eating it like an animal or something like that, right? If that is happening and she no longer considers me to be the alpha, or the idea of the alpha that she had in her mind, and she found someone else that is, it's still an action that she has taken herself. It is not something that I will excuse because I was not on top 4. I understand that it is because I was not on top 4, but it's still an action that she has taken herself. Do you understand what I mean?
I know what you mean, but there's very limited utility in that.
Well,
you can assign the moral stake to her. Go ahead.
The utility is, if someone does that, she's out, right? That's as simple as that. And the utility from having those fundamental, let's say, MGTOW or red pill ideas in place, and I think they do coexist in a nice bubble, let's say, in my head, is that I'll be fine either way, right? Someone's asking me, what am I going to do if my girlfriend cheats on me? I'm going to lift more weight. No, I'm just going to continue with my life, and that's it. It's going to hurt. It's going to stink.
There's definitely stuff for you to learn there, though, about yourself and about what the relationship was like, and about what your expectations were, and about maintaining boundaries. If a girl can cross your boundaries easily, she'll cheat on you. Because that's a boundary that you set in the relationship. If you, maybe not you, Nico, but anyone in a relationship is willing to accept her, I don't know, going out without him to bars, maybe you shouldn't be in that relationship in the first place. That girl is clearly going to cheat on him. It's no coincidence that that's known.
Well, I understand that. I understand that there is a lot of things that you can learn, and the theory is there for you to understand how, a woman might behave and what kind of things, if you are doing, or if you're not enforcing the boundaries, a woman might cheat on you and all that. Yet, what I'm saying is that even if you're doing your very best, even if you're doing absolutely everything, she might still cheat on you. And it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that it shouldn't really matter in the long term. because it is her action, an action that she's taken. Perhaps there is some introspection that needs to take place, perhaps for you to understand what went wrong in the relationship. And that's the reason that I produced the Understanding Woman series, because many people come and talk to me and tell me, you know, my ex-wife was like this, or my ex-girlfriend was like this, or behaving in this manner like you're describing here. And it is to understand how women behave and when, you know, certain things are happening inside their minds. But even if I have all this knowledge in my head, right? Or even if all these things, even if I'm doing everything right, that doesn't mean that at some point she might think I'm not good enough. That doesn't mean that at some point she might find someone who's better. At no point do I think that just because, you know, I'm me, that's never going to happen. And the possibility is always there.
Well, I think a good analogy for relationships is companies. If you run a company and you've promoted someone from being the mail girl to being the CEO, she's earned that title throughout the stages. You're familiar with the goings-on in this company. You know everything that's happening with this company. One day, company fails. Mm-hmm. It just fails. Like there's no more viability, out of money, gone. Mm-hmm. Did you make a mistake? Yeah, I think you did.
What was the mistake?
Don't know what that. Hiring the wrong accountant.
Yeah.
You could have bet on the wrong thing. You could have like mishandled things. You could have like brought out the wrong product. Maybe the product gives people cancer. Like that sort of thing generally ends a company. Mm-hmm. Because the market is not going to tolerate a company going around giving people cancer unless, you know, you have a lot of lobbying money.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying. I understand the point that even when relationships fail, there's still lessons to be learned. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
There's lessons to be learned, and the assigning moral responsibility to women is of limited utility, even outside of this situation where she cheats. Women don't need integrity the way that men need it. Men have this concept of honor that we hold very dear, especially men that are cool to be around. They have honor between them. And there's a reason that it feels cool to be around that, because they're standing in allegiance together and they're building a hierarchy. Women don't need this. They're happy to backstab. They barely even have friends in the way that we understand it. And when you say, oh, well, she did something wrong. Okay, she did. So what? So what? Where now? Where do we go to now? What's the future now that your girl cheated? It's not the end of the world. It's go get another girl. If you are interested in having one, of course. Yada yada. You can go your own way. But I could see how it's like painful afterward. Like you may like not look at women favorably after your girlfriend cheats on you after a long time.
And I personally think there is value in that.
Yeah. There's a big lesson to learn there, and it's about managing your relationships. And that lesson will come in handy later when you're managing a family.
Yes.
Because if you have a father that is willing to let his boundaries get walked all over by his kid, that family has a problem. And I think a lot of the stuff that we've discussed and in long-term relationships in general, it ties into family. That's why I'm talking about family so much. And me and my girl were thinking about starting one.
Okay.
So it's something that's on my mind a lot.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with the lessons. All I was making the point of is that women have agency themselves in a way. And I know there is not much value in assigning agency to women because in a way you can only control your own actions. So who cares, right? But again, I think a man should hold his woman into account. Otherwise, you're not thinking that she can act on her own, that all the actions that she's allowed to take are the actions that you allow her, which is not true. Women will do things that they will never tell you about. Women will act in a certain way at times to shit test you and all these things. And that means that needs to be controlled, if I am to say it like that. But I can't accept, let's say, a reality where a woman cheats on me and it's still my fault, right? It's not true. It's an action that she's taken herself. I mean, she could have called before she sucked someone else's cock, if she wanted to be respectful.
You're examining it in isolation, though.
Exactly, which is exactly what I'm trying to do now. There are many things that may have come before that, but if she had put any value in, you know, yourself or anything like that, or was respectful of you, she would have called and told you, you know, she's about to do that, and, you know, get rid of her and all that shit. It's not a point that makes that much difference, but it is something that we need to note, that women do act on their own. They do make decisions on their own. We can't say or create this illusion that there is this universe where about by behaving in a certain way, acting in a certain way, being alpha all the time, which is my disagreement with Red Pill in a way, you will be able to control everything, because that is not realistic.
Right. That is true. And she won't go into work the next day and shit on her boss's desk. Right? She won't do that because there's an established boundary there. There are repercussions, there are rules. It's been drilled into her for quite a while that that's not office behavior, right?
Yes.
Part of this whole, you know, being alpha thing, even though alpha is just a behavior, part of that is, like I mentioned earlier, setting boundaries and enforcing those boundaries. If you let the little slip, if you let the little stuff slip, the big stuff is going to slip. And that's why, you know, sometimes guys come into the channel and they say, oh, I have this girlfriend and she still talks to her ex-boyfriend. Really? Really? Why do you allow that? How did she become your girlfriend? Did you, like, vet her at all? Did you promote her through the stages? Were you dating other girls when you met her? Probably not.
Well, I
you
guess...
probably got to that point, you know, through, you know, building up to that. And there's a lot that builds up to that. And in your analysis, you're focusing on the endpoint of she cheated and it's her fault. Well, what about all the stuff that built up to that?
Well,
what about that relationship that you made? That commitment that you made, that you put value on, that you made her earn?
And I guess that comes to the point, if you had no experience to speak of beforehand, then you wouldn't have vetted a person before putting her into a relationship with you. And it is something that people need to learn. And it's something that I believe Red Pill, or Red Pill philosophy in the way that it's portrayed by the Red Pill on Reddit and all that, is something that they do very well. They teach people how to manage relationships, or how to manage dating, you know, to an extent, right? But what I'm saying for a fact is that if you do everything perfect, whatever, she might still do it. She still has agency and she still makes decisions on her own. And at some point, we need to understand that some of these guys, especially the young guys that are coming into these channels, they think it's unthinkable, right? To tell a woman, you don't do that, right? They're thinking that, you know, she's her own person, she makes her own decisions, and that's that. Right, and it's very difficult to get them to get out of that mindset, because they've lived, before they came to find us, under 20 years of feminist indoctrination throughout. And it's very difficult to get them out of that. Maybe sometimes these people are finding that MGTOW, in a way, is an easier choice, in a way. They just say fuck it all, right? I do think it allows them and gives them information in order to understand things better. And I do talk to guys who want to try things again, or want to get out there and start dating again. And I'm telling them, dude, there is nothing wrong with that. If you want to experience your life, just go and do it. Who am I to tell you don't do it? It's up to you to find what works for you, right?
Well, they do have to go live their lives.
Yes.
You said it just now, that, like, they do have to go do that. And retreat is not a strategy. It's an anti-strategy. That's what MGTOW is. It is retreat.
Well, that's what MGTOW is in the way that you think of it. And I do think, and there is validity in the argument, right? In what you're saying. And I'm going to give you that. MGTOW helps a man heal. It gives you time. You retreat a little bit, right? You retreat, you consume all this content that's out there, you understand women that little bit better, and if you have the emotional maturity and you want to, you will try to live your life, perhaps with women, perhaps without, but it should push you out of that slump in a way. It should push you on with your life. And The thing is with MGTOW, and I made a post about this where I said there is no end point to it, right? There's just information. That's what I personally believe. And it's up to you to make a decision as to where you should land. All I'm saying is just don't get married. I personally think that getting married with a woman fucks up the relationship dynamic. I really do think that.
It does.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, even if I'm thinking of it in just red pill terms, if that woman thinks that by leaving you she gains something, then it fucks up the whole relationship dynamic, and it's very easy to justify it.
Again, you're talking about things that tie into a much larger picture, and that much larger picture is the relationship. So, for example, my girlfriend knows that I have life insurance policies where she will get a lot of money if I die while I'm on
dying,
business.
man. She's killing you. She's poisoning you as we're talking.
Right. Yet every time that I bring it up, she starts tearing up. She says, "I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about you dying. It's not something that I even want to conceptualize. If you need me to sign things, sign it yourself. Just put this information in it. Don't do that." And it's not because she's a unicorn. It's because of the relationship. It's because this relationship is very important to her. It's more important than sleeping with one of the New York Yankees or any of the other millionaires that she interacts with on a daily basis when she goes to work.
Let me ask you this then, okay? Do you think that your relationship with your woman right now, and I'm sorry to make things personal, I'm not trying to do that, right? I'm just trying to understand the thinking behind it, right? Do you think your relationship right now, as it is, you can guarantee it that it will never change, that this dynamic that you have, this blissful aspect of what you're living right now? Because it does sound like things work out well, and I like that. I'm not saying I'm against that, and I do think that's possible. Do you think that will always be the case forever?
Unless something happens to me where I have some sort of brain tumor and I decide, hey, a blue pill life is the way for me. And I start saying, oh, well, we're going to be equal. Everything's going to be down the middle. And, I'm going to do all this housework. I'm going to care about things that I don't care about. And, you overstepped the boundary. That's okay. I don't care. I still love you. That is the complete opposite of what I am now. And I can't imagine any man in a happy relationship that is really like that. There are some older people where they've been together so long that the man is sort of soft. And it's kind of an interesting thing, men they get softer in personality as they get older, and women get harder in personality as they get older.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing that I've noticed. But anyway, that guy is not super alpha, right? I'm not always going to be super alpha, and there are chinks in my armor that she's seen, and we're still together.
I mean, okay, I understand what you're saying. Whereas my thinking is, and I think that is the difference between red pill and I guess my type of thinking, because I'm not going to call me MGTOW or anything like that, because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want. There's too much triggering.
Let's call it MGTOW.
The MGTOW, right? The MGTOW way right now. So the way that I see it is that for now things are good, right? And I'm always introspecting it. For now, I'm having fun. In the way that I see it, for now, with the woman that I'm with, I'm happy plus, right? Happy plus, that means I'm happy, I'm content in my life, and she adds that little bit to it. She's not causing me trouble. She's not moaning to me. She's not causing me harm in any way, emotional or whatever, right? That is how things are right now. At every point in my life, at every day I wake up, at every point that I breathe, right? I'm always considering it, right? If things are no longer like that, right? If things are no longer offering me a personal benefit, and I know that is an extremely selfish thing to say, I'm not going to be in this relationship anymore. It's as simple as that. And I cannot guarantee that she won't go and cheat on me with someone else. I cannot guarantee that she will stay in this relationship forever. It doesn't mean I'm worried about it, but what I'm saying is that I cannot guarantee it. because of what I understand female nature to be.
Well, the thing that we're talking about, your presence in the relationship and the relationship that you create, it's not from a book and it's not from someone's blog. It's from your experience. Without, like, if we take out the internet from influencing young men, they go into relationships today knowing, okay, woman in charge, because I grew up with a single mother, and then I went to school and it was only women teachers, and then I got out and like she has the vagina, she makes the rules. They go into a relationship with that just by themselves before they ever heard of Red Pill or MGTOW or anything. That's what they go in with, because that's the background that they have. That's the experience that they have with women.
Yeah.
They have this people pleaser thing where they like, they want to tell the girl the thing that she wants to hear so that she has sex with them. Whereas, in Red Pill, we're like, oh, you don't like something? Say so. Be completely open. Don't mind her feelings so much. She'll like you more for it. That's essentially the Red Pill slogan in terms of honesty.
In essence, what you're saying is...
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
The point that I'm going to get to is that it's no game. It's no act. Being on your game 24/7, you already are. That's a change within you. The things that you learned while you were sleeping with 25 women, maybe not you, but other guys, is that here, this part of my personality really works well. This other part, where I'm an open book and I kind of want to put my head on her shoulder because it's a hard day, that doesn't work so well. And you learn that with experience. It's unintelligible until you live through it. That's the lesson from experience.
The way that I see it is like, I think of my behavior with women as I think of my behavior with my mates, right? One friend, random people on the street or random guys on the street are unlikely to be my friends if they don't fit a set of requirements, right? And I'm unwilling to change my ways. I'm willing to take a step back every now and then on certain things, but I'm not going to modify myself in a certain way that women will like, right? So that is the, I guess that is what it comes down to.
Well,
yes,
sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, if I don't like something in my relationship, I'm extremely vocal, right? I tell her off, but I've always been like this, right? I've always told the women that I was with off for, I guess, not doing things that I liked or behaving a certain way or busting my balls for, when it came down to it. I always was like, working in that mindset. I guess what it came down to is understanding that it is within my rights to be like that. In the past, I felt guilty for doing so. Now, I am not.
Well,
I don't do
this. You know what the female strategy for that is?
Wow.
It's, what gives you the right to talk to me that way? Do you think you can just say that because you're a man? Horrible. You're a pig. You're straight out of the 1950s when women were treated like garbage and given a home and everything that they wanted. But yeah, that's the response to "because I told you so" very often by a girl who's indoctrinated in this whole feminist thing. Because, like I mentioned earlier, women grew up with this nonsense too, and they build expectations for relationships based on this nonsense too. So it's a hard thing to build up that relationship into something that's healthy and that works for both of you, that speaks to all of your nature for a long period of time. Now throw in the continuous stream of competition, especially if it's a pretty girl, and you're not ready to do it until you've been with a number of women. Experience is the best teacher, and that's not something I hear from MGTOW.
But I guess information can offer, aspects of your life where, let's say you're living something and you're like, oh, I heard this before, I read this here, and that can help you make decisions. I think information does offer you understanding of the life that you're living. But I guess who was making a comment? Because I read it before. Someone was asking if we can define what alpha is. And I do think alpha is in the mind of the beholder. I'm sorry for jumping to that, because it's something that we completely skipped. Because alpha, in terms of like MGTOW, is not something that is advertised, not something that people talk about. An alpha mindset, as we're saying, or as we're discussing, it's not something that is advertised. I don't believe in the segregation or the division, let's say, as such, because I don't believe that kind of thing should exist between men or when we're talking.
Right. I agree with what your with your disagreement
Yeah.
with Vox Day's categorization of, oh, this is a theta male and this is an omega male, and since you're an omega male, you can only talk to women from a 48-degree angle, and no. That's nonsense, and it's putting a label on yourself. In my view, alpha is exercising your will against the external world, including people and nature. It's an alpha thing to build a house. It's an alpha thing to lead a group. And if you were to distill the essence of masculinity, in my view, it comes down to leadership. And to have leadership over other people, you need to have integrity, you need to have honor, you need to take it on the nose, so to speak. That is, make mistakes and deal with the ramifications. It's part of being responsible. It's also part of the reason that women don't make great leaders.
Yes, so what I'm saying is, when it comes to alpha, or the term that people define in the red pill, let's say, does it have something to do with women, or how acceptable women are, or how attractive women find you? Is that what the red pill considers to be alpha? Because that seems to be what MGTOW believe red pill believes. Is it that women define what alpha is? Is it men that define what alpha is? Or is it an individual that defines what alpha is?
So in terms of the strict red pill definition, alpha means social dominance. It ties in line with what I said earlier about exercising your will and leading a group of people. If you display these high value traits, you're being alpha, right? And a great way of identifying what is alpha, and the term is really overused.
Yes.
Let's just say good, because that's really what it means to men. You want to be more alpha. You want to be better at things. You want to exercise your will. You want to be socially dominant. It is in your heart, in your soul. Get out of the basement. When it comes to...
I'm reading the comment section. You should read the comment section. They're asking...
What are they asking?
Alpha is male disposability with semi-regular sex, and that's one of my friends, CS Victor, who's making that.
Wrong.
What is it then?
You're not disposable. Your leader is not disposable, even if he takes it upon himself to sacrifice himself. He's not disposable. This concept of the disposable male, that's an issue with how men look at themselves. For example, if there were a bullet flying at my girlfriend today, I'd get in front of it. Does that mean that the entirety of the 8 years before that point was disposable? No. Does it mean that my leadership won't be missed? No. Dead, I chose that, and I'll die happy too, because I saved her life. Is that an alpha thing? I think it is. There might be guys on the internet who disagree with me, but I think it is. And it's something that I would choose.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I do think there is, let's say, a predisposition, genetic or whatever, in men to sacrifice themselves almost, or be disposable, if you want to phrase it like that, when it came to protecting their women. It is there, and it goes for children, and in society in general, where is women and children first. But I do think there is a problem in a society that completely disregards men. Do you understand what I mean? Where if we're thinking of ourselves as disposable, as our duty to protect every and any woman on the street, or to be a white knight to every woman around, then there is an issue. I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. No, I'm saying
I believe in tribe above all.
That's
I wouldn't stand in front of a bullet for some other girl. Mm-hmm. It has to be my family or some member of society that I deeply love. I love my life. My life is fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give it up for nothing. I'll give it up for my child if I have to, but like going around and like having good manners, that's something that's I think it might be a podcast of its own. But a lot of young men with the old rule book, including myself, we have good manners. I like holding the door. I have excellent table manners. Do you think that I use this when I'm trying to get a one-night stand? No. I don't hold doors when I'm trying to get a one-night stand. I don't, walk on a certain side of the street when I'm trying to get a one-night stand. But when it comes to my girlfriend, I do walk on one side of the street. I do have a certain amount of decorum around her.
Well, let me say something. When it came to the disposability and stuff like that, there are some valid questions that are coming from the chat.
Let's hear it.
Would you save your bro? Would you save your brother, let's say, or your friend? And there is one really tough comment from someone, who's Nikolai, who's been a dick throughout the chat. He's saying, after you sacrifice yourself to save her, she'll proceed to suck my dick. That's what he's saying.
Good luck. Good luck. I've thought about this in terms of self-sacrifice, and we've actually had talks about it. And I said, okay, if I die or something, here's who you should go be with if you want to be with anyone else. And she said that she wouldn't want to be with anyone. Now, those are just words. It's a terrible situation when somebody dies in a relationship. And I don't think that people can really talk about it in a clean and direct way, let alone the fact that paying attention to women's words above their actions is generally a mistake. I'll be fine. I think that a lot of these guys would die for their tribe. I think that, and that's not a genetic thing. They would die with a smile on their face to save their mother's lives. They'd be happy to. They would do the same for any woman that they have a very long-term relationship with, that they love deeply. Yeah. There's life insurance. On Monday, I have a meeting with a lawyer to have a will, and guess who's starring in it? Not me. She is.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is one of the. So when it comes down to it, right, and that is one of the points that we're having the discussion, because people are saying that it's a debate. I don't think we're debating. I didn't think this would be a debate.
Well, they're controversial things that we're talking about that a lot of folks have particularly deep beliefs on.
Well, yes, exactly. One of the things that I was saying is that MGTOW is, in a way, prioritizing yourself. It's thinking of yourself as the most important thing. It's thinking that men have had it bad, and you need to push men or think against gynocentrism or protecting women, by all accounts, or anything like that. Right? That is one of the differences, one of the key and fundamental differences when it comes to MGTOW. MGTOW are not traditional, right? And I'm definitely not traditional. I don't believe in traditional relationships in a way. I do believe in each person to his own to one extent. I do believe each person should pay their own when it comes to a relationship. But I don't think that MGTOW agree when it comes to, let's say, male disposability or sacrificing themselves when it comes to their women or anything like that. I think the MGTOW type of thinking is, think of yourself as a unit. You only get one chance in your life. You better enjoy it for as long as you can.
How realistic is that?
Yeah.
How many MGTOW would die for their mothers?
I don't know, but
I don't know. Like I think all of them, as long as their mothers weren't horrible to them, of course. But really, for their families, any man who can look at himself in the mirror and be proud of what he sees is willing to sacrifice himself, and that's part of what we are as men. Women's perspective on this, it really doesn't matter. Like, it's not something that they even have to think about.
But does it not bother you?
What? That I'm willing to do that?
No. Does it not bother you, for example, that you're willing to sacrifice your life for your woman, but your woman might not be willing to do the same?
No, I'm not looking for equality. And she can make babies. She can have my kid. She is biologically enabled to raise my kid for a certain period of time. And she's a great person that should be doing that.
And again, one of the disagreements would be that a woman producing babies, yes, it's her biological function as it is mine to produce jizz and millions and millions and millions of sperm.
It's not a kid. It's not family. Even though it starts with that, that's a component of it. If you have a family, things change. And in the event of not having a family, it's basically the same.
Okay. Okay. I guess we can...
Babies magical.
Well, I'm not saying it's magical, right? I'm not saying it's... What I'm saying is that it's a biological purpose, that it's fulfilled by all animals in the animal kingdom, right? Women produce, or females produce babies. It is what they're made to do.
Not asexually.
No, of course not asexually.
And who cares about all the other babies in the world? They're not your tribe.
No, I understand. And what I'm saying is, if you have babies, you are there to guide them. You're there to protect them. You're there to look after them. And I understand that. I completely understand that.
Mm-hmm. And what about...
What about the woman? No. Let me tell you what I actually think when it comes to sacrificing about your woman. I think when it comes down to it, it will be an instinctual reaction, and no one knows what the reaction would be, right?
Oh,
I don't know because it never came down to it. I have protected the woman that I was with on occasion, and I do look after the woman that I'm with right now. If she's ill, of course I'm gonna look after her. I'm not gonna let her die. I mean, I'm a doctor after all. It's not that I don't have that protective instinct, and it's acting out in my professional life as well. But I do think there is an issue in a society where we're thinking that it is okay for a man to sacrifice his life. Do you understand what I mean? It's not okay, and no one should have to sacrifice their lives, because if it came down to it, I don't think the woman would do the same. And I do think that's again inborn genetically. So I can't really judge it. It is what it is. But I do have a problem with it when I'm thinking about it, let's say, in an intelligentsia manner, let's say, because it is a life and a life. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And just like you said, if you're not in that situation and you're not familiar with those situations, your responses, they're coming from academia. That's what a lot of the guys in the chat are saying. They're like, I would never sacrifice for my mother. I would never do this. I'm not going to sacrifice myself. Me above all. Yeah, I don't believe it. I don't believe that they've been in those situations. And
yeah, I understand.
All this nonsense about like, oh, this guy isn't from Red Pill. These are not Red Pill beliefs. Yeah, they actually are deep down. And all of the stuff that we're building up, all the stuff that we're talking about now, that's a part of a relationship. That's a part of the man that's in the relationship, and everything that you design when you're talking about a red pill relationship. Because it's kind of hard to say, okay, I'm in charge of the relationship. I'm doing all of this stuff, and I would sacrifice myself for her. A lot of them don't see that, probably because, too much time in the basement, whatever. Or they haven't had that relationship. Or they've been watching MGTOW stuff and say, oh, those women don't exist. She's a unicorn. She's the perfect girlfriend. She just showed up on his doorstep and said, hey, I'm happy to submit to you and blow you whenever you want, and let's have babies. It's going to be great. No, it doesn't turn out that way. And if anybody's listening from earlier, you can hear some of the stuff that I have to contend with. That a lot of these guys would say, oh, well, she works with the New York Yankees. I'm gonna go read a MGTOW site or something. That is unthinkable to a lot of these young men. Okay.
What I'm saying is that I do think there is validity in experience, and nothing beats experience, right? Nothing beats experience and living your life and doing things. But I do think you can read on things, you can educate yourself, and you can, in a way, avoid certain things or make sure that you're understanding certain things when they do happen. So let me think of it like this. So for example, I used to have this argument with some people within the MGTOW sphere that used to tell me that, you need to completely avoid everything in order to avoid any risk, etc. And they used to tell me that they've had experience and that's why they were saying that.
Horrible.
And my argument is, right, I don't need to have experience in order to be able to do things. For example, and I'll give you an analogy right now. I don't need to have personally have suffered with pneumonia to know the right antibiotic to prescribe in order to treat pneumonia. In the
Not
UK,
an apt analogy.
it is something to know. It is something to recognize, and I'm sure I would recognize if I had pneumonia myself, and I would know how to treat it when it came to myself. But you need to have a certain knowledge base, and I'm completely thinking when it comes to Red Pill, and when it comes to MGTOW, when it comes to personally the content that I put out, it is purely there for information's sake, and the decision I leave it up to the individual. I don't want bitterness. I don't think there is no bitterness coming from me or for my past relationships or for my current relationships or for anything that may have happened in the past or future. It is going to be me living my life, it is me giving the information out, and it's people making the decisions for themselves. And that's all I want when it comes down to it. Because if someone's educated in the things that we're saying, they can at least say, I knew all this shit and I still went and got fucked myself, right? I went and got myself in trouble. Yet right. I still knew it. That's all I want people to have, an informed decision. And when I was in MGTOW, and I think many of the guys producing content right now, they were in MGTOW producing content for exactly that same reason. Because when it came down to them being in relationships or landing themselves in trouble, the information was not there for them.
Everywhere in the manosphere that a guy goes, whether it's MRA, TRP, even PUA, they're going to get pretty much the same information about divorce rape, about women are like this, hypergamy exists. Like these are popularized ideas from very big names that like Rollo, he's written volumes on this and how to understand it. The outcome of that hasn't been good. Unfortunately, they need a prescription. They need do this, understand that this is a strategy that you should use, understand this is, the strategy that she's using, how to respond, etc. The concept of mistaking the unintelligible for the unintelligent has been one that's been going on for quite a while now. Like in the chat, they're all talking about how like, oh, I wouldn't do this. This doesn't seem right. This guy's using shaming tactics. You don't, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that it's wrong.
No. I'm not. I think
these things have a huge effect on us that we may not be particularly conscious of. We would like to believe that we're in charge of ourselves. We know what makes us happy. We know, the right path forward, et cetera, et cetera. That is not the life experience of a young man growing up in the West today. In fact, at every step, he's discouraged from all the stuff that MGTOW talks about. So it's very easy to lump in that discouragement with, hey, get out of the basement. No, they're just discouraging me. It's a shaming tactic. No. Yeah, not really. It's talking about the entirety of that movement. Because while you may not say, and the people in MGTOW may not say, stay in your basement, avoid all sexual contact, be a monk, yada yada, that's the outcome of giving half of that information.
Well,
what happens with TRP?
The reason that I'm saying, and we can finish with this, the reason why I don't give prescriptive information is because I do not think one prescription fits all, right? And I'm not willing to, because if I was to give prescriptive information, it is me taking responsibility over someone else's life. So what I am willing to do is offer that information and hope that people will make the right decision when it comes to them. It's not even an advice. I know the difference between giving prescriptive information and advising people on specific issues because I do it as a profession. But I don't think in this situation, one size fits all, if you understand what I mean. And I do think it's best to allow people to make their own choices when it comes down to it. And I think that is one of the differences that we have, or MGTOW may have, with the Red Pill. I don't want people to make decisions based on things that I've told them this is what you have to do. I want them to just do what they want to do. And I've spoken to people who are married, and they're telling me they're applying these things that I'm saying, or things that they've understood things that I was saying, and they're changing their life towards something else. Even though I'm telling people do not get married, the information is still valid. because it does help an intelligent person or a person with experience, as you're saying, to make a decision as towards how he wants to live his life. I'll let you have an answer to that if you want to, and then we can close this chat because it's been like an hour and a half.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think that you summed up what we covered so far. And my views on it are that you don't become a good leader by yourself. Same way that you could extrapolate that into you don't become a good man by yourself. You must fail. You must make mistakes. You must do all of these things that are unpalatable at first. And if you just sit there and say, I don't want to do that, that's not what I want, that's not what I think makes me happy, you'll not grow into a great man. Part of being a man is knowing when to sacrifice and who to sacrifice for. It's not every woman that walks down the street that you jump in front of the bullet for. It's the ones that you care deeply about and love deeply. And we can get into that at some other time if you wish, but that is the essence of it. Right now, women and children, even the most repugnant feminist, all of these people are yearning for male leadership. They are yearning for it. They don't know how to vocalize it. They don't have the words for it, but they need it. Every woman, every child needs that male leadership. And by taking yourselves out of that pool, you're really doing a disservice to yourself and humanity. Because you MGTOW, you're really the smart ones. Like, you know a lot. You can intellectualize like nobody's business. And we need more young men and more young women that have high IQ. Right now, the people who are reproducing are dimwits. And they just love reproducing. And when you ask them why they do it, well, that's what you do. It's tradition. No, that's nonsense. You guys should go build families, be happy, and enjoy the important things in life and learn the important lessons while you're young, because you won't get a second shot at it.
Is that it? Can I simply add, my point of view is to do what you want, read the information, understand the information. If you want to make mistakes or don't make mistakes, but the information is there if you want to educate yourself, and if you want to improve yourself, even when it comes to, you know, getting girls and sleeping with girls or whatever. But I want you first to at least read the information, consume the content, and at least find some contentment in your life in whatever form that might take. I don't care what it is. If that takes the form of a family, that's fine. If that doesn't take the form of a family, it's still fine. That's all. And it might sound like a cop-out, and I understand it might do that. I know things, the things that are good for me, and I'm doing those things, and I'm happy to share it with people on the channel. I've said I have a girlfriend, and she's even sitting behind me right now and listening to the shit that I'm saying right now. So I don't really have a problem saying that out loud. It is not a cop-out when it comes to me. It's just I don't want to tell people how to make themselves happy or feel contentment in their lives. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. It's still in line with what I was saying earlier about you know, that only giving information is sort of an academic theory.
Yeah,
like,
I only make
ideally,
theory posts.
in an ideal world, everyone would have the information and make the intelligent decision. It doesn't work that way outside of academia. Theories fall apart. I could write a book for you that says, here's how you fight. Are you going to win the next fight you go into? No.
No.
You need experience. You need to learn how to get knocked down and get back up. Those things are not palatable, as I mentioned earlier. So I'd recommend go out, make mistakes, do the things that you think that are not palatable, like lifting weights and failing with girls and getting your heart broken, all of that fun stuff. Do it now when the stakes are low, and you're young, and you can have a great life after that. You can get into an LTR if that's the thing you want. You can sleep around more if that's what you want. It will help you to have the experience. It is much better to have the experience and not need it than to need experience and not have it.
Okay. Okay. Well, That is your opinion. My opinion is different, and I think we'll leave it at that. I'm not saying that there is a disagreement when it comes to me, in terms of that you can find happiness in your life by living the way that you are. But what I'm saying is that there are other ways to find happiness too. All right, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Do you want to say goodbye to the chat? There's been a whole lot of like arguing and bickering and all that shit happening there. And no, guys, to anyone who's saying I'm keeping my shit in control because the woman is in the room, Jesus.
Oh, come on. Come on. The guy said earlier he doesn't want her to leave.
Yeah, I really don't. So please be nice. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Nico. It was very nice speaking to you.
Yeah, very nice talking to you too, dude. Take care.
Bye-bye.